It is Health Diary. Thank you for making time. My name is Gladys Gashanja and we are coming to you from the 4 Points by Sheraton here in Hurlingham. Now, we all know pregnancy comes with morning sickness. The only difference is that the intensity of the same is different from one expectant mother to another. Now, there is hyperemesis gravidarum, and this is a severe form of morning sickness that can easily put both mother and baby at risk throughout the pregnancy. So you wonder what the difference is between the usual morning sickness and hyperemesis gravidarum, which is abbreviated as HG? We'll find out in a moment, starting off with this fact of a matter. Hyperemesis gravidarum, HG, is an extreme form of morning sickness that causes severe nausea and vomiting during pregnancy. The condition usually occurs during the first trimester, but in some cases can persist throughout the pregnancy. The nausea experienced in HG and the subsequent constant vomiting can lead to severe dehydration and poor weight gain during pregnancy. There is no cure for hyperemesis gravidarum, but constant monitoring and management can help relieve symptoms.
I was diagnosed back in 2015 when I was pregnant with my firstborn son. But funny enough, throughout my journey, no doctor kind of understood what I was going through. Up until I delivered my baby, that's when I got to understand that actually what I was going through, it was HG. I would vomit. Like in an hour, I've vomited 10 times. And then now I will even vomit blood. There was a time I was losing weight. I was bedridden. I can't do anything. If I want to vomit, let me just throw up in a bucket there, because I don't even have that energy to go to the washroom. Even me going through all these, I gave birth to a baby who was 4 kgs. Funny thing about HG is that there's no medicine. Around second trimester, towards the end, it got a little bit better. I couldn't take water, so I was trying to look for alternative, maybe something like flavored water. Some doctors were speculating it's genetic or something, but I'm the only person who got it in my family. They've never actually had something like that. Now, throughout the first period of HG, I became depressed and I didn't know. So the second baby, I experienced HG during the first trimester. Of course, now I was enlightened more than the first time, but already I was going through depression. So it was more of me trying to be sane than me trying to control HG. Already mentally, I wasn't okay. Don't let anyone tell you you're going through morning sickness. No, just understand that HG, it's a condition, yes, but you can overcome it. You are a warrior. When you see the results by the end of the day, you'll actually enjoy. We've created a group, HG Warriors. You can join us. We can help you. There's a support group just to help you walk through it, because again, we understand it's even expensive, the admissions to the hospital, and we can just be that support system that you need. What I'll tell the partners, please be understanding. Don't, just because someone else's pregnancy was smooth, don't assume that your wife's pregnancy is the same. And be the part of the solution instead of being the part of the criticism. Just be there. Even if you won't do much, just be there. Just show her that I'm here, I understand, and I'm willing to work with you.
Hyperemesis gravidarum. I will abbreviate that to HG due to how long the name is, but that is the conversation of the day. And we have Professor Moses Obimbo, who is a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist, joining us, and Elizabeth Franklin, who has lived experience with HG and also is the founder of HG Kenya, Africa. Thank you for joining us on this conversation. And let's start off by understanding this condition a little bit more. We know of morning sickness being part and parcel of every pregnancy. What about pregnancy, first of all, triggers morning sickness in a woman, Dr.
The reason why this happens in early pregnancy is not very well understood, but some observational studies have shown association with some hormone that's produced by the placenta that results in this particular kind of occurrence.
So when does it move from your normal morning sickness to now hyperemesis gravidarum as we're talking about it today?
Morning sickness happens about 50 to 90% of all the pregnancies, but only about 1 to 3% of pregnancies are affected by HG. And it happens when a woman loses about 5% of pre-pregnancy weight. It's associated with obvious dehydration, and then they also have some other symptoms like too much salivation, too much confusion, and sometimes hospital admission because of that.
Yes. Okay, let's hear from Elizabeth. When did you study, or rather your journey with HG start?
I have 2 babies, and the first one was not that bad. When HG struck, it was at 5 weeks, and I did not quite understand what was happening. But I got hospitalized, and it was managed, and I went home, but I still vomited throughout the entire pregnancy. When the second pregnancy hit, again it started at 5 weeks, but then this time it was much worse. There was severe dehydration, just like in the first pregnancy. There was quite a bit of weight loss. 10 to 15 kilos is what I lost. I remember being very dehydrated. My skin could not even accept any lotion. It was that bad. Lips chapped. It was just really, really bad.
And we'll hear more of that experience in a moment. Dr. Tell us this. They say HG is a rare occurrence, but clearly there's some women that are susceptible to it. Why?
Some of the risk factors that have been contemplated and been associated with the HG include women who are getting pregnancy for the first time, those with a younger age who get pregnant a bit early, and then those of lower socioeconomic status. Sometimes it shows that some of these women are predisposed to getting HG because of the kind of diet they're predisposed to. And then there are some obstetrical conditions like having twin pregnancy, which puts women at a higher risk of getting HG. And then sometimes pregnancy does not really develop, but there's tissues around pregnancy, like what we call trophoblasts. They surround the baby, and then from the placenta they can grow, and when they're growing, then they can also cause this kind of symptoms as much as is presented in these patients. Yes.
Now, you said at times the first child, clearly here Elizabeth, both children, it was there. Is there perhaps genetics at play here?
So in biological factors, we have a role of genetics that has actually been advanced to explain this occurrence. Some of the observational studies, like done in Norway, showed that twin individuals who are identical were at higher risk of getting HG than those who are fraternal twins.
When did you get a diagnosis?
Immediately I went to hospital. There's one hospital out of hospitals that I visited. It's only one hospital that was able to understand that this is HG and give me proper management of it and proper drugs to be able to help me through that process.
Okay. Dr. how long did it take you to understand HG?
Okay, for us, because we are well trained, it's very easy to pick a woman in danger of HG. So this condition then, if not too severe, then you know it's just nausea and vomiting of pregnancy. But when you put it on a score, there's a score that we call pregnancy unique quantification of emesis and nausea. You can be able to score, and if the woman vomits more than 3 times a day, or has nausea for a certain period of time, or reaches a specific number of times, you can score from 3 to around 16 and be able to tell that the severity of this gravidarum, can have mild hyperemesis gravidarum, moderate, and very severe hyperemesis gravidarum.
So for the women who normally have the nausea and vomiting throughout their pregnancy, not all qualify for HG?
No, not all qualify for HG. Actually, only 1 to 3% of that will qualify for HG.
Okay, so Elizabeth, how bad did it get?
There was a lot of vomiting. It was such, I call it violent vomiting. because after you vomit the water, then you vomit stomach acid, and then at one point it corroded my throat so badly that I vomited blood. I got admitted with both pregnancies. Because of the vomiting, the acidity corroded my teeth. The biggest was being misunderstood, even by the very doctors, that I am looking for help. And the misunderstanding also goes into family, into work, because now people think that you're just pregnant, you're being dramatic. It can be that bad.
You're not the first person to get pregnant. You're not the first person,
you know. And no one actually sees not just the physical trauma, but the mental, the emotional. It's draining on every single area of your life.
Okay, now, Daktari, even as we listen to the dilapidating way it can actually affect you, the dehydration, the poor weight gain, are these risk factors that perhaps can affect the fetus?
The morning sickness in itself is not a really big problem, because many women are able to get healthy babies and they're able to sustain, you know, the pregnancy. But when it gets to hyperemesis gravidarum, the HG level, then it becomes a really severe cause of concern, because then dehydration and the weight loss would now make the lady, because she's not retaining any food, she does not have glucose, so she'll start converting fat into what the baby can use, into ketones. And that's why when we do some of the tests, we get there very high levels of ketones in the urine. And ketones are not very good for baby's brain development, baby's
what are these?
muscle development. Okay, ketones are basically small chemicals that are broken down from fat when they're being converted into energy-providing substances in the body. So ordinarily we use glucose, but now if you don't have glucose, because you've not been taking anything, you now be using the fat converted into products to give energy, and one of the byproducts called ketones. And so with this, definitely it will affect fetal growth, the baby's growth. And as a result, many studies have shown that with the severe hyperemesis gravidarum that is refractory and goes for most part of pregnancy, ideally supposed to be remitted at 14 weeks or 22 weeks at the latest, but some people, you know, it really persists. So if that happens, then you can get a preterm birth, you can get a fetus with very low weight. So you expect a baby to be 3 kilos at term, but then you get a baby maybe with 1.5 kilos.
All right, so when you were admitted, what exactly was the reason, and what did they do to ensure that you were not at risk, or the baby?
The reason was dehydration. And so I was put on drip just to rehydrate me, and also drugs to help me not to vomit.
All right. At this point, were they concerned about the baby?
They were more concerned about how am I surviving now? Because if I'm able to survive, then the baby will also survive.
I hear you. Okay, at this point, we take a quick break on Health Diary. When we come back, Daktari can tell us the possible risks to the mother during the pregnancy and if she's suffering from HG. And of course, we'll understand more about it in a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back to Health Diary. My name is Gladys Gashanja. Today, the conversation, hyperemesis gravidarum. We abbreviate it as HG, and helping us along with the same Professor Moses Obimbo, who is an obstetrician, gynecologist, and Elizabeth Franklin, who is or lives, is it lives or has lived experience? Because it seems to be continuous, but then again, she's also the founder of the HG Foundation Africa. And Daktari, we have talked about the risk factors to the child if you have HG. How about the mother?
The first thing that happens is the dehydration, and this can go all the way and affect other organs in the body, like the liver, the kidneys. Then you can easily suffer into, go into renal failure or kidney failure. Also electrolytes in the body. There are some chemicals in the body that are important when they're balanced to maintain your normal self, your normal physiology. So if these are impaired, if they're imbalanced, then you start having other symptoms like, confusion, You sometimes have fever, and some people go into coma and die just because of hyperemesis gravidarum, if it's not well addressed in good time.
So are you saying you are more concerned, especially for those with underlying conditions like diabetes, hypertension?
For you to make a diagnosis of hyperemesis gravidarum, you also have to exclude other conditions that can cause vomiting during pregnancy. Once you've excluded, now you're saying this hyperemesis gravidarum, for any woman who suffers this condition, whether she has underlying conditions like hypertension or diabetes, or she's as healthy as you might think, they are all at risk, because once you are in this particular event, then whether you're healthy and you're not eating, or you're sick, you're not eating, you're at risk of, of your health, in your own health. Yes.
Elizabeth, you touched about the misconception around this condition, where people think perhaps you're seeking for attention or not understanding the veracity of the condition. How did you maneuver this?
You just get by somehow. You keep explaining yourself to whoever it is that will listen, to whoever it is that can help you. I remember throughout, I can't say I had a balanced diet, because I ended up even eating bland foods. And if someone sees you eating bland foods and they are wondering, where's your meat, where are your grains? Now you have to keep explaining again and again, and you actually can't tire.
Let's talk about the loss of opportunities, because considering how you described it, you perhaps cannot even go to work. Too many excuses will render you jobless. Your business has come to a standstill because you cannot even be able to attend to business. Talk about that and the women you've met.
I know of women who have lost jobs. I know of women who've lost even marriages because the husband, the partner is not able to understand what's going on.
Daktari, when these women come to you, do you encourage them to come with their spouses, perhaps to counsel them why this pregnancy is different?
We encourage the couples come together for any gynecologic or obstetric review. And so more for this kind of conditions, because there's a lot of misunderstanding, because then the husband, who probably has no idea about what the woman is going through, I would think she's basically pretending, or she don't want to work, or she don't want to contribute, or she's seeking attention.
Tell me this, Daktari, does HG increase the risk of the woman or the expectant mother from of suffering from postpartum depression?
There's a very strong association between the two, and it's actually been able to be explained at terms of a very biological level why this happens. Yes, so the answer is yes, there is that association. Okay,
so when you went to hospital, they only put you on fluids, gave you nausea medication, anything else?
That was about it. I think mine was on the moderate scale, not on the extreme, because I know of women who have had to be hospitalized for weeks on end. For me, I was hospitalized with both pregnancies for a day each, and then the rest of the time was just outpatient.
And how are you managing it at home? You said eating bland foods. What else?
That's pretty much it. I had to try and get water as much as I could. You have to get water from wherever that you're able to get the water from. If you'll be able to eat a watermelon today, and that is all that you're able to do for the day, it's a win.
Over and above pregnancy as you know it, and then having to leave that's intense. Okay, Daktari, what's the treatment protocol with HG?
If have moderate to severe score, then we have to have inpatient admission. And have this patient being observed in the hospital, because, as I mentioned, there are many things that go wrong. And then sometimes, these women, despite the medication that we give, including the medication to stop that vomiting or to suppress that vomiting, if they don't work, then this woman has to have feeding through the, through the veins, parenteral feeding. And so that happens in very severe cases.
Can you prevent HG, especially when you already know that you're susceptible to it?
In terms of prevention, there is data that talks about monitoring your diet, as Elizabeth has mentioned, especially if you're predisposed to it. Then you want to make sure that whatever diet you're eating, you don't eat bulk meals at once. So make sure that you eat small meals frequently, avoid high-fat diets, avoid very spicy foods. Then they also suggest that pre-conception supplementation. So before you get pregnant and you're at risk, it's good to have some supplements, some multivitamins that can protect you against HG in your pregnancy that comes in future, as well as being able to supplement some of the small chemicals that are needed in the body.
Elizabeth, let's talk about the cost here, because it's a different or unique pregnancy. A lot of women have to end up going to hospital more than usual, admitted more than usual. How do people handle this? Because I know there's a cap to pregnancy when it comes to insurance, whichever way you look at it.
I can speak for the women in my support group. There's quite a lot of depletion on their insurance. And if you go cash, it's quite a bit, because the kind of medication that you're given can be quite expensive. And I know of many cases where women have either died or they have chosen to even get rid of the pregnancy, because it can then become too draining for you.
Daktari, do insurance companies understand there's something called HG?
I think they do understand. It's a medical condition in pregnancy, just like any other medical condition. And by and large, they need to cover it because it's, no one chooses to have HG.
Now, even as we bring this conversation to a close, this has been flagged as a possible cause of maternal and fetal mortality, as Daktari has said so clearly. What would you like to put out there in as far as supporting women who have to live this reality, Elizabeth?
As the founder of Hyperemesis Gravidarum Foundation Africa, we are seeking to just create more awareness of this condition, have a real connection between what the doctors do not know and what they can learn, and in order for them to be able to treat these women well, because there's a lot of that misunderstanding. And if it would be possible to even have this kind of treatment at a much cheaper cost, or even for free, I think it would go such a long way in order to give support to the women with HG.
And the value of this psychosocial support, now that you have a support group, talk about that.
It is everything. It's everything when you know that there are women who actually have gone through what you have gone through, and they have made it. I think just that one thing makes it so much easier for the woman who is going through it at that time, to be able to have it easier to go through it, because it is misunderstood. And I know it would seem like it's misunderstood only in Kenya, but from what we have seen and from the women in the group, because they're from everywhere, from the USA to the UK, it is misunderstood the world over.
Daktari, from a medical point of view?
We need to listen to our patients, and the disease is just not a disease organically, but it's a disease because she belongs in a community. So we need to understand where she's coming from, what kind of psychosocial support she needs, and what kind of medical treatment that we need to give. That's number one. Number two is to just encourage the researchers, like some of us, and the government institutions, to support this kind of research, because as clearly indicated here, we don't know so much about HG. We don't have very good treatment targets for HG. And then lastly is to have patients with this kind of symptoms, whether they think it's just nausea and vomiting or morning sickness, to show up in the hospital so that they are able to be seen by a qualified clinician and be told either go home or you need an admission, so that they don't come too late for management. And always we make sure that the women's health is at the center of what we are doing.
Very well said. Professor Moses Obingbo, obstetrician, gynecologist, thank you for your time. And of course, Elizabeth Franklin, with a lived experience of HG and now taking it further and supporting other women through the foundation. Thank you for your time and what you are doing. And definitely this was such an eye-opener for many that did not understand why their pregnancies was different from others. Time now for a health tip.
Oral cancer is one of the leading cancers worldwide. In fact, it is top 10, and it affects the head and neck region. There are many causes of oral cancer, but of importance is the correlation between people with oral cancer and history of use of tobacco. There is also miraa, kubel, and other things that are put in the mouth. Most of the oral cancers start as an ulceration, which is not healing. So if you have any ulceration in the mouth, which is taking too long to heal, it is important that you visit your dentist. We are not saying that you have oral cancer, but it is always good to make sure that is ruled out.
We see a lot of your questions concerning hyperemesis gravidarum. As we have learned today, it's a severe morning sickness, and most of you did not even know it actually is something that stands on its own. So for all your questions, Daktari, we'll look into that, and thank you for engaging us. My name is Gladys Gashanja, and we've been coming to you from the 4 Points by Sheraton here in Hurlingham. Until next time, see you.